Yes, I think let's move on to the next question. So the question 4, leading on from what Eva has said, what challenges have you faced and how have you overcome them? So challenges in your consulting journey or challenges leading up to that. Dondi?
I am usually asked to give presentation about my work in different teachers courses and other kinds of groups around the world. And the biggest challenge, as I have already written to you, the language barrier. Finally, that's a translator for Skype, but I am always afraid of talk to anyone in English. So for me, the biggest challenge is the language. The second one is the time zones, because sometimes I have to get up at 2 a.m. at night, so it's very difficult for me, and all my family is listening to my presentation in their bed. So, sometimes it's very difficult and big challenge for me, the cultural differences. So what can I do and what is allowed to do? For example, when I'm giving a presentation to a group of teachers in India and Malaysia or somewhere in the East, what can I do and what is not allowed for me to do? How can I speak? How can I use my hands? Or I have to hide my hands not to show anything because it can be insulting for them. So sometimes I have to learn new cultures, what can we do and what can be done. But for me, the language is the biggest barrier to give presentation and to talk about my work. But I have to mention, can I mention another story? You were talking about visiting to New York, and I am talking about the language barrier. Once I went to New York on my own, I'm very proud of that, and I gave presentation to the Hungarian teachers in the USA in Hungarian language. And the work I do to make a collaborative work and to use the net to meet other cultures, we change it to the ex-Hungarian families, and I am going to find ex-Hungarian children in the USA and collaborate with them in the same way. It is quite interesting story. You know, we have a Sunday school in Chicago and in Florida, and we do the same, just a different way. So in this case, language is not a barrier for me. And cultural tradition is not a barrier for me because I can talk about the Hungarian culture to the children whose mother or grandmother or grandparents were Hungarian. So it can be changed, these gates can be changed for everyone, I think so.
Dondi, thank you so much for sharing. It's so encouraging to see how you've turned what was such a challenge into a success, and that you really stepped out of your comfort zone, being brave, taking those steps. And I think that's really an encouragement to all of us that we can do that. And we can step out of our comfort zones and draw from your success and your story. So thank you so much for sharing. Michael, would you like to share a challenge that you faced and how you've overcome that?
I'm not sure if we've overcome it yet. I still think that as you were saying, Eva, about the biggest barrier you had at the beginning was the fear, was the worry about not being successful. Well, I have a feeling that that's going to stick with me for a bit. I mean, there's still the worry about one job to the next, and consultancy jobs aren't full-time 9-to-5 jobs. You need to put yourself out there again and again and again. Now, in the work I've done, I mean, although I say consultancy, I'd still be part of the company for a time. So I'd adopt a role within a company, be with them for a month, maybe 2 months, and then I would move on. The next step, though, after leaving the work with that company, being proud of what I've done, and then doing it again, it's a worry every time. I mean, you have a family to support, you have the mortgage to pay and all these bills and things that go with it. There's still that concern of how long until the next one. And if you don't have one set up before you leave the last post, there's an element of fear. I'd say that the biggest barrier for me still is to jump in again. And having to jump in again and again can be a worry. And I imagine that with time, with repeated success, I think it will lessen and lessen some more. But I'm only a year or so into my journey too, so this is still fairly new for me. So I'd say that just now, my biggest obstacle that I am overcoming, but still exists in the back of my mind. In the peripheral vision is that worry, is that fear.
It's nice to hear that someone who is actually on that journey still has that sense of reality and, you know, has their feet on the ground, Michael, because I guess that the term consultancy sounds almost it sounds a little bit like you're a bit of a rock star. Do you know what I mean? It's like you make your own hours, you know, I get to travel, and obviously it's something that people were very much on that path really want to aspire to be like. But you're right, Michael, at the end of the day, and I'm not there yet, but you're having these small, short-term, sometimes medium-term contractual works, and people aren't going to come knocking on your door, you know? Not your door. They probably are coming knocking on your door, Michael, but in general, they may not. And then, you know, so you're right. It's almost, from what you've said, it's the idea where you're perpetually promoting the work you're doing to keep things going all the time, almost to the point where when you can say no to something, you know you're doing well, because you know that you're busy, and like what you said, you've still got a job to create your own job, you know. So it's a lot harder than I think what most people can imagine. You've certainly given me some things to think about straight away there, actually.
Even going back to the beginning, we're talking about what the things that got us where we're going, what's a good first step. That first step is not only done once. That was what I was trying to share. That big bit you were saying as well, Sharon, just jump in. That it's not like you're saying, two people aren't knocking on my door yet. When that happens, then I'll feel that I've made it, if you like. Then I'll feel I'm in a place now where I can relax it more. I won't lessen my efforts, but the tension and the worry, I think, will dissipate, because, like you said, people will start knocking on your door.
It's a big world. And we've all got a place, right? Let's try and instill a bit of that confidence in the people who are starting that journey. Yeah, definitely. Okay, over to you, Shireen.
Thanks. I think there's so much valuable input here, and so much I'm just going to go back and watch this and draw on. So much valuable input coming through. So thank you all so very much. I just wanted to know if you wanted to share a little bit about the challenges and the journey you are and how you've overcome them.
The journey has been very rapid, very, very rapid. I'm not a very confident person. When I grew up, it was in a predominantly white area in England, and so even from the get-go, I had to, before I even understood what the idea of consultancy was, I still had quite a journey to get into developing my speaking publicly and so on and so forth. And then when I first started to really speak publicly at conferences was probably about maybe just over 2 years ago. And I really enjoyed it. So really that's where it came from. A little bit like what you've all said. If it's not something that you feel you naturally want to gravitate towards, it's probably not better that you do. But if you do like engaging with people, and so from there, when Singapore happened, it changed a lot of things, because all of a sudden I was like, oh, people get opportunities to fly to countries, and companies pay for you to fly to other countries, and they pay for your food. And honestly, it was almost like living in a movie. I was like, whoa, I don't have to pay for that when I eat it. And so,
Rockstar.
Say again?
Rockstar.
Rockstar, yeah. Well, yeah. No, for the 3 days I was there, I felt like I was a bit of a rock star. But then you, a little bit like what Michael said, when this kind of high is over and you come back, you're like, oh, okay, what happens next? Conversation about New York and so on and so forth. But really touching on what all of you have said, when you're considering consultancy, the safety net isn't there anymore. That safety net where you have someone who's paying you every month. The safety net where someone else is professionally developing you, managing you, setting your goals. You don't have that anymore. So if you have to be motivated to set your own goals. You have to be motivated to want to put yourself out there. And at the point where I am, I'm still a full-time teacher, leading, still doing public speaking at conferences and so on, which is great. And then I'm trying to develop this other thing, which I don't get paid for. I'm only learning about it, but it requires almost as much effort as the thing I do get paid for. And if you're not willing to put that energy and effort into what you hope to be a full-time business or a full-time role, you're going to struggle, because eventually you are going to have to put that much effort in. In fact, when you're on your own, Michael, no doubt, Shireen, Dondi, you have to put way more effort in. I mean, some of my friends who are consultants, their phone's going off when they're having dinner in the evening, and they have to go and answer it. And it's almost, I mean, again, correct me if I'm wrong, Michael, but you almost have to be on call until you make it, almost 24/7, because every opportunity is an opportunity you need. You have to afford that time to yourself.
To go beyond that too, the worry as well, though, and you're saying about being 24/7. There was a period between late January and early April where I worked for a company as a lesson experience creator, if you like, and I worked sometimes 12-hour days for this company. It came to the end of the work session and they didn't pay me. They owe me, present tense, upwards of $20,000, and they haven't paid me. And that's something as well that as a person going on a journey as a consultant, that happens. And that's a scary thing. It's not something you ever want to have. And again, like you're saying, Ivo, you're saying you're on a team, they're managing you and they're encouraging you and they're developing you and they're paying you. And they pay you every month because you have a role with their organization or their school. When you're a contractor, you're looking out for you and the company's looking out for itself. Sometimes if they can cut corners, they will. And that's something as well, which is a real big blow for you as a person. And if you go for it as a consultant, it's very difficult to come back from that.
Okay, can I just ask you something there? How do you avoid what's just happened? Because that could really like knock somebody for six. Like that could almost put them off being a consultant, what you've just said.
Well, I mean, I'm not saying it didn't. I was really quite crushed by the whole ordeal. That was a big worry. I hope I never see again. But there were signs, and I wasn't looking at the signs. I was devoted to the work, and I think I was very blinded in that way. I had things to accomplish. I wanted to support the company, and because this was 6 months ago, or no, it was about 10 months ago now. I was very green, and I was trusting, and I think that had I stepped back a bit more and seen the bigger picture, I would have been far, far more aware of what was going on around me, and seen that, I'm working really hard here. These other people aren't working as hard as I am. I'm producing masses of content here. These other people aren't producing masses of content. Where's our boss? Where's our contractor? Why aren't we hearing from this person? And all these signs that should have been warning signs for me weren't, because my head was down, and I'm thinking support the family, and I'll get paid. So I would say, as a consultant, take a breath every so often. Take a step back every so often and look at the bigger picture. Does something smell wrong to you? If it smells wrong to you, it probably is. And then question things. Question your boss, question your contractor, question people who you're working with, and see, how are things going for you? That's an important thing.
Well, thanks, Michael. That's really valuable input there, and sharing some of the lessons that you've learned. That's something that we can all take on. And I think it's been so encouraging for me just being part of this Connected Educator Appreciation Day. And it's, I think, bringing an awareness for everybody out there that they're not alone in this journey, and that there's a field to draw on. And that really is really very exciting. That we're growing the network and sharing and learning together.